It's a weird thing to spend a long time covering somebody's activism, somebody's work, and then to read a feature story about them where they are effectively admitting defeat and moving on. And that's basically what's happening with Anita Sarkeesian and Feminist Frequency. I'm kind of in shock from reading this whole piece because I never thought she would ultimately leave. And I'm not saying that as like a haha we won situation, because I don't believe there's really a winner or loser here. It's always been conversations that have never fully been conversations, very much one-sided arguments, shots fired from either side, with never an attempt to actually meet in the middle to figure it out. But I'm not going to lie when I say this, financially speaking, on both sides, that was entirely never the point, right? That was never going to be a thing, because either side finds ways to work within their space in order to discuss these issues. And if you ever want to truly, I think, tackle a subject matter like sexism in video games, I think it requires a very nuanced approach, and something we never really got from Anita Sarkeesian. It was never nuanced. But then again, why would it be? She's an activist who has spent years learning how to fundraise, whether it does appear to be through MLMs or other avenues. This is exactly the kind of person that she is. And I think it's an interesting thing to watch unfold. It's an interesting thing to watch unfold, because where I was when I first encountered Anita is far different than where I am now. And I look back on my earlier content and I regret how I approached it. I do. I regret how I approached it. It was, especially the first video I ever did about Anita. I feel really bad about that, because it's not, I said some really stupid things and that were meant to be shocking and meant to just be over the top. But I look back on it now, and I have for a couple of years now, and I've thought, man, that was so dumb, because I do like the conversation. I do like the ability to discuss these issues. But when you approach things from the way that I think a lot of us did in the beginning, and a lot of people still are now, you're never going to get that conversation. Right. And I even think VidCon 2017 was maybe like my foolhardy thought process was that maybe there could be a conversation. That didn't happen, period, point blank. That was, no. But reading this piece, it does talk a lot about who Anita is as a person and where she's at right now in her life. And, I don't hate her or anything. I've criticized her quite a bit. I don't hate her. I think people out there think I do. I don't really hate anyone. Not fond of many, but I don't really outright hate anyone, I don't think. But I don't hate Anita. There's always kind of been a line I've used in regards to her where I said you need to respect her for the villain that she is. And that has more to do with the fact that she's a lot smarter than people give her credit for. And I think that's one of the reasons why when I look at this piece and she talks about how she's no longer taking a salary from the nonprofit, and she's no longer paying her employees, and she got rid of everything and she's scaling everything back, that it's, at the end, she lost the game. Because, and I think by this article's own admission, once she lost her usefulness, the money stopped coming in. Because where we are now, compared to where we were in 2017, both I think as a society and video games as a whole, Anita doesn't really fill a need anymore. With the Me Too movement having been a thing, I think ultimately criticizing video games for their portrayal of women has very little merit anymore. I think has very little impact. The video game industry as a whole has gone on to gross over $100 billion a year, and while they like to make claims that some of these people who work in games have listened to them and gone on to make changes for the better, which is, who knows, maybe, we're moving past that point now. We're moving past that point, and you could kind of tell that Anita's discussions surrounding E3, like the EA press conference and how it represented women, and then of course CD Projekt Red and her attempt to extort them, my opinion, you can kind of see that there was an act of desperation there, that there was a final act of desperation. That was a final a final whinge from the darkness, hoping for a handout, hoping for a Joss Whedon to come in to save the day, hoping for Intel to kick down money, hoping for all these companies to kick down money, and it's not there. And I can't help but, to an extent, feel bad for her. Maybe feel some pity. She spent 10 years working on this, taking on the internet, and I can respect that. Not saying I agree with it, but that you can respect people for their hustle. And there was a hustle there, and I respected that. Didn't agree with goddamn any of it, but I respected it. And it's one of those things where it's like watching someone just kind of like fade off into the darkness. You know, you kind of look at it and you go like, huh, okay. Like, it's weird. It's weird. You know, you almost wonder, like, you're almost like, come on, Anita, like, go back to VidCon, like, get back in the ring, get back in the fight, do this thing, keep it going. But people lose interest over time. People stop caring over time. You know, like I enjoy looking at the financials from Feminist Frequency to see where they spent their money, to see how much money they made, because it was curious to me. This year, I decided against it. I decided, I think, that I wasn't really going to talk about her much, you know, unless I felt it was something egregious, like the CD Projekt Red commentary. And then, of course, this whole thing came out and just kind of took me by surprise. Like, I literally sat back in my chair and went, wow, like, holy crap. Like, holy crap. I was not expecting this. I was not expecting this in the slightest. I never thought Anita would give up. I thought she was so freaking determined. So determined to just take on gaming wholeheartedly for the rest of her life, that I never thought she would give up. But it ultimately does boil down to fundraising. It boils down to money. And that is not something that I'm not understanding of, right? As a person who does this as a career, has done it as a career for a while. And part of my coverage of Anita in the early days got me a lot of attention. I can understand that situation. You know, this article here, this piece talks about how she lives in the Mission District of San Francisco, not doxing, it's in the piece. And the average apartment rental is anywhere between $2,500 to $3,600. It's like, yeah, if you're paying yourself a salary to live and work in, you know, San Francisco as a nonprofit, I mean, come on, like how do you go through all that money? Now, there's questions that have been brought up around how much time she says she put into the company, into the nonprofit, as well as the money raised and everything else. And I don't know the breakdown. I don't know the financials. I'm sure I could dive into it by requesting her tax returns and looking at the financial documents. But I don't know. I figure if there's something there, it will be brought up. But it's weird. It's so weird that it's over, that Feminist Frequency is dead, you know. And what's interesting is there's a piece in here about Jonathan McIntosh, right? Because I've always been curious about Jonathan McIntosh and their relationship. How did that work? What was that dynamic like? Because he is such an anal retentive douche. Like, what exactly was their relationship? And you get a tidbit of that in here, where they butted heads over how to do it. And this is where I kind of respect McIntosh, actually. I got a little bit of respect for him here, because his approach was to tackle it from every and all side, to prepare for potential criticism, to thwart it off at the pass, to look at an argument, then to think of the counter argument, then to explain then to deflect from the counter argument. Like, that was fascinating. I've always been curious about the mind of McIntosh, because it's like, how it's so weird. Now we get a little bit more information on that. So that was fascinating. I thought that was pretty kind of like, I don't want to say cool, but I was like, oh, wow, that's super interesting. Like, I'm just kind of nerding out on this for some reason. Like I said, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. But it's over. It's over. And it's not just like so when I read that she's closing down, and I read those things, and I kind of put myself in, like, I look at it through then my own perspective of, you know, Anita has criticized me publicly. I've criticized her publicly. We've never had a conversation. I've been open for one. I've said that it's never going to happen, obviously. And, you know, as like some kind of understanding, like, I think, like I said, I feel bad for how I initially constructed my arguments, because they weren't good. They were very juvenile. They were very dumb. There was just a reaction rebuttal versus anything of substance. And that was not right. I shouldn't have done that. It was dumb of me to do. And I can acknowledge that. And again, like, this was 7 years ago. Like, me as a person then, where I was in my life then, where I'm in my life now, vastly, vastly different. And I think Anita's kind of the same way. And I think that's why she wants to move on. She's also potentially run into, there was like, I think that there might be a call for a forensic accountant to come in to look in at everything. I have a feeling that the nonprofit itself is going to maintain the base minimum, but probably that's going to be shut down here if they can't find any funding for it. She does more in regards to consultancy and speaking gigs, which is going to pay money that can be paid to her directly, not through the nonprofit. So then she, at that point, is making a salary off of that. And I think, if I'm being honest, there's a part in this piece where she says, like, people who meet me in real life are surprised at how nice I am. I didn't meet you in real life, but we locked eyes at one point and you called security on me. So I guess I get that. That was kind of funny. But I get the same thing, to be honest with you. People who might think I'm a jerk online or my videos or whatever have met me in real life and have liked me in real life. So I think there's also that disconnect. There's that internet disconnect that happens where we aren't necessarily the person that we present ourselves as. And I don't want to be like that thumping chest person anymore. It's not who I am. It's not who I am anymore, I should say. But no, I mean, it's just so weird. It's super, super, super weird. There are people that I've seen videos that have come out that are like dancing on her grave. I'm not going to dance on her grave. She dedicated 10 years of her life to something she believed in. Whether you want to acknowledge that it was a real belief or if it was a con, that's entirely up to you. I think it was a mixture of both, in the sense of theatrics and survivability. When you seek to raise 6,000 for a series, you pull in 156,000, and you meet Joss Whedon and you get to know Ryan Johnson, and she gets to know people in Hollywood, and she travels the world and she does all of these things. And everyone in Hollywood, like not Hollywood, but every video game journalist website out there covers her ass, protects her ass, constantly defends her. An ego can build. But then also from the death threats, the college shooting threats, everything else, then your ego turns into protecting you. Because there's that reality that you now live in, and our brains are hardwired to protect us. And I think that played a bit into it. It's weird. I keep going back to that word. It's still weird. Is this the last video I'm going to make on Anita Sarkeesian? Probably. If Feminist Frequency is gone and she's no longer trying to do anything in gaming, I don't really see the need for it. If she's just wanting to look, I don't agree with her politics. I don't agree with her conclusions on a lot of arguments. And I think that she probably, she's an activist. So we have to look at it like that. But I think I could be done with it. I think if she's quitting this thing, then there's no real reason for me to keep kind of criticizing her. There's no reason to follow to the next thing. If this is what I originally criticized and it's over, then I think that's kind of where I stand on it. There's a weird sense of peace with that. It's weird. It really, really, really is. I don't want, I know, I wish her the best of luck. I don't think it's even really that, because I know she wouldn't wish that on me. I'll tell you what I do wish on Anita. Peace. I wish that she finds the peace that you can tell that she is so desperately seeking. And peace on the internet is something that is almost impossible to come by. It is. It very much is, especially when you're controversial. And after, 7 years of this shit, you can see why I think, why I wish that for her. I do. Because I'm in the same boat. And I just want to reiterate, I don't have anything against her. I don't necessarily like her, but I don't have anything against her. I don't hate her, obviously. I might have, she was always kind of this, like I said, this villain, this representation of a lot of wrong in regards to the discussion over these issues. And, she'll never acknowledge any wrongdoing, stealing gameplay footage specifically, and other things that have happened over the years. But I still wish her the best of luck in regards to just finding the peace that I think she deserves. I do. You can give me shit for that all you want. I really don't care. It's kind of like it's kind of like looking at your opponent from across the battlefield, seeing that they're tired, understanding their position because you can kind of mirror it to your own. That's how I view it. Yeah, that's really about it. I don't really think I have anything more to say on it. So I look forward to your comments. They should be very fascinating. This should be very interesting. If you, if you want, toss it a like. You don't have to if you don't want to. Subscribe if you want. It'd be cool. And, I think I just want to leave it with this. You can ideologically oppose somebody to probably the very near core of your being for a number of reasons, but you should never lose out or just lose in general the civility of conversation, the civility of challenging someone's ideas versus challenging them as a human. Anita may hate me. And I'm not going to lie when I say she probably has very valid reasons to hate me. I've criticized her for 7 years. I don't blame her one damn bit. But at the end of it all, I can at least acknowledge that there is that understanding. And with that, I wish her peace is what I just want to say. Anyway, this has gone on for a while, but I think we can criticize each other for what things we've done and said, but humanity is still humanity. And the older I get, the more I would rather not lose that, even with people I completely disagree with. Because it's easy in this day and age. It really is easy. And it's hard. The hardest thing is being understanding, I think. Because it doesn't have much of a place on the internet. It doesn't have much of a place in general. Not in this field. But once we lose that, I mean, what are we? How are we better than anyone else? We're not. We're just not. All right. I'll see you guys later. Have yourself a good day. Be kind to one another. At least that's all I can ask, I think. All right. Bye.